Well, Iran is not at war with the United States. Iran, at this point in time, has terrible relations with the United States, but we're not at war, thankfully.
Is it not their military assistance that's killing Americans in Iraq right now?
A very small percentage of the American casualties in Iraq is due to the Iranians. This view is basically a result of disingenuous arguments by the Bush administration. Iran is not responsible in any meaningful way for our trouble in Iraq. If Iran didn't exist, we'd be in basically the same situation today in Iraq that we're in. There's no question that the Iranians have a vested interest in keeping us stuck in Iraq, because their great fear is that if we get out of Iraq, we'll attack Iran. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing certain things to complicate our life in Iraq, but I don't think very much. But the point I would make to you is, if you look at how Iran behaved towards the United States throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s, it's quite clear that they made serious attempts to improve relations with the United States. And it was the United States that basically refused to significantly improve those relations. So I think there's some possibility that the United States, if it were to change its policy towards Iran, would find itself in a situation where it had better relations with Iran than it now has. But because Iran is developing a nuclear program, and the Israelis find this completely unacceptable and are putting great pressure on the United States to prevent Iran from achieving that goal, the United States and Iran have terrible relations, and there's even talk about the United States using military force against Iran in the foreseeable future.
But my follow-up to that is that during that period that you discussed, where they were trying to make overtures to the United States, didn't they at the same time have a clandestine nuclear program?
They did. But the Israelis had a clandestine nuclear program in the 1950s and the 1960s, and the United States had good relations with them.
But the Israelis don't burn our flag.
Well, again, we've had bad relations with the Iranians in the past, right? But in the 1990s and the early 2000s, they made a serious attempt to improve those relations. And there's no reason that the United States and Iran have to have bad relations forever. They don't have to be burning our flag forever. Furthermore, even if they do burn our flag, the fact that they have nuclear weapons does not mean that they can use them against us or they can use them against Israel. Indeed, I think there's no way that any serious Iranian would even think of using nuclear weapons against the United States or against Israel, because the end result would be that Iran would be turned into a smoking, irradiating ruin in a matter of minutes.
So you don't take Ahmadinejad at his word?
What was his word?
He's going to annihilate Israel.
He did not say.
He did not say.
He did not say that.
Correct me then, if you could.
No. His rhetoric, if correctly translated, said that with the passage of time, he expected that Israel would disappear from the map. And he was talking about Israel basically following in the footsteps of the former Soviet Union. He was basically arguing that a Jewish state in the Middle East was not a viable entity. It didn't have any future. He was not talking about using nuclear weapons or using Iranian military force to make that happen. It's been translated, of course, to imply that that's what he was saying, and that has, fueled American and Israeli animosity towards Iran. But that's not what he said. This is not to say that we shouldn't reject what he said. As I made clear here on the panel today, I fully support the existence of Israel, and I think if Israel's existence or survival is threatened, that the United States should come to its defense. But I don't believe that Ahmadinejad was talking about wiping Israel off the map with nuclear weapons. And if he was talking about it, it was an idle threat anyway, because there's no way he could do that. Because if he even tried, his country would quickly be turned into a nuclear wasteland, and that's not